Welcome everybody to my podcast, Big Little Small Talk. I'm Megan O'Hara-Sullivan and I love to talk, but I also love to listen. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome along, listeners. We're on that segment called Big Little Small Talk, where I get to go out and talk to someone interesting in the community. My name's Megan O'Hara-Sullivan and you're on 102.7 FM Community Radio. Today, I've got a very special guest and his name is Justin Bygrave. Thank you for being my guest today on Big Little Small Talk, Justin.
You're more than welcome, Megan. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Now, where would you say that you would start your own story?
Oh, gosh. It would be here in Toowoomba, for sure. I was Toowoomba born and bred, went to Wilsonton State and Rockville State Primary Schools, Toowoomba Preparatory School, and then finished my schooling at Concordia College. So, yep, Toowoomba born and bred through and through.
Have you ever been to live away anywhere?
Absolutely, yeah. We spent 2 years in Melbourne, where my sister was born, and that was a really interesting time. We were able to have rabbits for pets and just a different climate as well. I remember getting off the plane after visiting my grandparents 1 year and it was 30 degrees in Queensland and it was -2 when I got off the plane in Melbourne, so it was like a bit of a culture shock. Didn't expect that, but yeah, it was good. It was good times in Victoria.
What took your parents to Victoria?
Work. Yeah, my mum was a hairdresser and my stepdad was a hairdressing sales rep and they started up their own businesses down there and yeah, that's where it all started. My sister was born down there and then we came back up here to be with family and grandparents and cousins and uncles and the extended family and have a more stable sort of community connection with our family and friends.
Right. And have you, as an adult, gone to live away anywhere?
Sydney. I spent 2 decades in Sydney in my early 20s. That's one of those things that you look back on and go, I wish I would have done differently. But yeah, it was 2 decades and it nearly killed me, literally. But coming back into Toowoomba, I've been able to find my feet and reconnect with some school friends and family and move forward.
How long have you been back in Toowoomba?
It's been 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we might talk about the Sydney experience a bit later on because you can't throw a line like that out there and not expect me to probe a little bit deeper.
Go for it.
Justin, you and I first met
yes.
at Clifford Gardens where you had a stall where you were selling the firefighting calendars and
yes.
you'd just been nominated for Australia's Greatest Workmate and that was in 2018.
Yes.
So I think everyone would be familiar with the calendars, the firefighting calendars. Yep. Tell me about your involvement with them.
So I basically ended up by leading my own team of fundraisers throughout regional Queensland. So we would travel from northern New South Wales all the way up to Cairns for 6 months of the year. And during that time, I had an association with Mates for Mates, which was one of the receiving partners or charity partners for the calendar. And the firefighters and my co-workers actually nominated me as a Workmate of the Year through the Mates for Mates campaign, and following that I then became Australia's first community ambassador for Mates for Mates in 2018.
So let's just back it up a little bit here. So how did you have is it a business then that you're selling the calendars or do you have involvement with producing the calendars?
No, I started out as a salesperson for the calendars and then moved on to establishing my own business, Firebrand Queensland, and we've been around for 4 years this April.
Firebrand Queensland. And what does Firebrand Queensland do?
So a firebrand in the true sense of the word is somebody that's passionate about community-based causes, kind of like yourself, really. And it sort of represents me and coming home to Queensland. So the name Firebrand Queensland is basically myself, and the logo as well represents parts of my past and parts of my direction for the future and wanting to make a difference. So I set up Firebrand along with selling the calendars. I started my own brand of merchandise, but I also reached out to Drought Angels and became a partner with that amazing organisation who does such amazing work for the rural and primary producing sectors. And it's just been such an honour to be able to work in conjunction with those people, and Firebrand Queensland is the only merchandise partner that has the authority in Australia to sell their fundraising merchandise other than Drought Angels themselves. So
So we're going to talk about Drought Angels a little bit in a minute, but you're selling products, getting money, and then that is donated then to these charities.
Various
Is
charities.
that okay?
Yep, absolutely.
Right.
So instead of signing up to do, direct donations via your bank account every month, people can just come to Firebrand, purchase a product, and the component of that product is then donated back to the charities. And for example, with Drought Angels, 75% of that goes back directly to support farmers.
Okay. So Drought Angels is specifically for farming families.
Yep.
What are your other products that you sell?
I've also got another brilliant relationship with the Kids with Cancer Foundation, and Firebrand Queensland has donated over $18,000 to $20,000 in the last 2 years to Kids with Cancer Foundation. So during COVID, that's something that I'm pretty proud of, given the set of circumstances for retailers and what we had to endure as a small business operator for those seriously sick kids and their families, because during COVID they couldn't actually hug their own children for fear of giving them COVID. So it was something that was another association with the firefighters calendar. But yeah, I managed to sell their fundraising merchandise as well, and it's going from strength to strength with that relationship. And we've started up our own activity book, the Firebrand Queensland activity book, and so that was something that was done in conjunction with Drought Angels and Kids with Cancer. And during COVID lockdown, I reached out to those two charities and said, we've got to be able to do something and put something together for these kids that are isolated either geographically or physically from their own families and friends during that time. So Kids with Cancer Foundation sent out an email to the Westmead Children's Hospital and Queensland Children's Hospital, and we got enough submissions back from kids throughout Australia for a 28-page activity book, and that was printed here in Toowoomba as well by Serengeti Print Group. So having that again, that Firebrand Queensland component. We're supporting Queensland families, in our own backyard and looking after people in our own backyard as part of our business model. So it was a beautiful concept, and some of the submissions from kids were actual cancer patients, so that was really touching to get those.
Tell me about that. Did you ask them to submit? What sort of booklet is it? It's an activity book.
It's an activity book, so there's puzzles and mazes and search words, and they're all done by children to help kids. It's so cute. It's so cute.
Where is your desire to help people? Where does that come from, do you think, Justin?
Two main things. Firstly, it would be following my own experience with suicide, but also I spent some of my high school years living with my grandmother and my granddad, who were both nurses, and they would bring people home from Bailey Henderson Hospital on the weekends, and they'd spend the time with us, and they would run my cousin and I around Toowoomba to basketball or swimming or soccer or whatever the case might be, and their door was always open to help people, give them a meal or, keep them in touch with the community. So I think that's rubbed off subconsciously to what I do. But it's not, when you've touched on or been to the brink with suicide, it's not a case of, how do I put this, feeling as though your life's come to an end if you don't succeed at suicide. But to be able to rise above those challenges, psychological challenges, it's different for everybody. It's a complex subject. But for myself, it was a case of being able to, I didn't want to let my perpetrators win, and I knew I deserved better, and I also wanted to give back. So the day after my assault in Sydney, I said to myself in the hospital the next day, what are you going to do to get through this? And so I looked at my skill set, and it was basically customer service and selling products, and I said, right, you're going to start your own business, which has a charitable component to it, and you're going to make a difference that way. So that was my motivation. It's been a long road to get to that point, and the assault happened, 10 years ago, 11 this September. But it's something that wasn't a huge life-changing event, but it brought in my focus on how to behave and how to conduct yourself and how to make a difference. And that's probably where we met, and we started working on the marriage equality campaign.
Where you and I met.
Yes.
Yes. Well, look, I do want to go there in a minute, and you're giving me a lot of information, which is obviously, I would imagine, quite traumatic for you to sort of go over in your head. But can we just go back to your suicide attempts, and what then that you have gone on your campaign at the moment. It's the Mates for Mates, isn't it?
And then
and can you tell me, and Don't Give Up on You. So can you tell me about those two projects?
Yeah, so Mates for Mates is a charity that supports our returned servicemen and women with post-traumatic stress and help them to re-assimilate into society after their own experience wearing the uniform. And they're a sub-branch of the RSL, so they were formed here in Queensland as well. And they've done some amazing things with family recovery centres now throughout the country, and they have direct support. And it's not just for the individual person that's experienced post-traumatic stress, it's a holistic approach to their recovery. But that's where looking at their business model and looking at what I can do with the skill set that I've got to overcome my own challenges. It was about my own mental health, it was about my own physical health, it was about surrounding myself with the right people, the right circle of friends, the right support networks to get me through that period of time. And I made some mistakes. I made some stupid, damaging mistakes, but I always had that goal because I knew no one that had been through what I'd been through with the assault. And so to be able to create a business where I could help other people to pay my own mortgage and to pay for my own existence and lifestyle, and also to contribute.
The Don't Give Up on You campaign is... What sort of thing are you doing with it?
Yeah, so that's my own campaign, and I started that last year. I had 5 friends that went to the brink with suicide, and I thought, something's not working. The message isn't getting through. The message isn't cutting through. And as I said earlier, suicide is a complex issue, and no two people's life experiences or situations are the same, and that's why it's complex. But the treatment programs can be the same, but tailored to individuals. So the Don't Give Up on You campaign was basically a personal attempt to help my close friends, and these were all people that would call on me, on a weekly or a monthly basis. And 2 of them were women and 3 of them were men. So the 2 women came to me and said that they're struggling and they're at the brink and they don't know what to do. And I simply refer them to their doctors and to get medical help if they needed that, whether it be antidepressants or changing their diet or changing their set of circumstances, their work, whatever it was to get them through their crisis point. Seek counselling. And they did that. And the 3 men took attempts on their own life, and one of my friends has since had to learn to walk again. And they're all still with us. I'm lucky in that regard. But to have 5 of my close friends over a 7-month period all come to me apologising for their attempts, and it's not a situation where you need to apologise for, because life is there to be lived, and it's something to respect and something to treasure. But if this was a cross-section of my close-knit friends, what else was happening out there in the community? And so I've put my money where my mouth is and started my own campaign, Don't Give Up on You, and that was simply to encourage people to seek support, to seek advice, to seek help. There's heaps of support services out there, like the traditional ones with your Salvation Army, Red Cross, Lifeline, Beyond Blue, Black Dog Institute. There's also new ones for like Trademark, Dolly's Dream. Drought Angels does a direct over-the-phone counselling service for farmers. So our campaign sits underneath that, where it just encourages people to reach out and talk to somebody. It doesn't matter if they're a paid counsellor, that's their job. That's what they're there for. If your car breaks down, you take it to a mechanic. If you break down, pick up the phone and talk to a counsellor. And I know that road itself is hard, and I'm not speaking from a position of arrogance. I went to 5 different counsellors before I went, she gets it. And I had male counsellors and female counsellors, and I just felt sometimes they were a bit of a tick and flick scenario, and I didn't feel as though they understood the complexities of my assault. And I kept making those changes because I knew I deserved better. I knew I didn't deserve to feel the way I did, and I knew I deserved to make my family proud again and to be respected. And I think that's all people want, is that they want the love and the respect of their family and their friends.
So So your Don't Give Up on You campaign is mostly an awareness raising,
Yes.
and maybe referring people to agencies if
Yeah.
if they were to get in touch with you. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Is that a campaign
Absolutely.
that people can find on Facebook? Or?
Yeah, it is. We've got a Facebook and Instagram pages, and we've also got the pop-up site at the moment at Grand Central. You can pop down and I'll be there manning the site 6 days a week. And we've got fishing shirts and other merchandise that's down there at the moment. So it's just, the reason why the logo is bright yellow is because yellow is the international colour of suicide, and the background is black because we all know how overwhelming and dark people that are at the brink can feel. And the emphasis is on the you, because you could have somebody like I did that seems to have everything going okay, not fantastic, not terrible either, but psychologically, we've all put on our faces and our fronts. So for me to hear that that's what my friends were doing, it was just one of those eye-opening experiences. And having been there myself 12 years ago, I couldn't let it happen. I felt compelled to do something about it. So that's why, that's where Don't Give Up on You was born.
It's a great story. I love it. I'll just remind the
Thank
listeners
you.
that they're on 40dB 102.7 FM on community radio when you're with me, Megan O'Hara-Sullivan, and we're in our segment Big Little Small Talk. It's not little small talk, it's big talk today, I think. A lot of really confronting issues.
It is. It's a very complex subject, but my message is one of hope and encouragement, and to let people know that there's, light at the end of the tunnel. You just got to find the right keys to get you going.
Start the car.
That's it.
Were you involved in the military yourself, Justin?
No.
You haven't been in the military yet,
No.
but the friends that have come to you recently, were they dealing with PTSD in different forms?
Yeah, they were. We had one friend who's, and it's as I said, it's different for everybody, and their own mental health is different for everybody. One of my friends had a special needs father. Another one of my friends was, later I found out, was in domestic violence. Another one had lost their workhorse, and they're out in rural Queensland, geographically isolated with no phone reception. And another one was only 22 years of age and fell off a truck and was told he couldn't work again. So they're all different ages, they're all different life experiences, and they're all different people with different support networks around them, but to all hear their stories of hopelessness and despair. But they've all apologised. Well, the three men have all apologised for not coming and seeing me, which I find humbling and interesting at the same time, because I'm just one person. I'm not a qualified psychologist, I'm not a doctor, but I am somebody that understands what it's like to be in that situation.
And that's, I think, I went to a domestic violence recognising red flags workshop the other day, and the really great facilitator, she said sometimes you just need to sit with people and let them talk and let them have their...
let them feel heard.
Yes, exactly. Hear the voices. When I was looking up what the Australia's Greatest Workmate, what that was, and I was trying to find some information, and I did find the fellow, I can't remember exactly who he was, but he was talking about sort of raising the awareness of things like PTSD and suicide, and he was talking about it was coming up to International Men's Day, which I think it's really interesting because we've just had International Women's Day, and around that time a lot of people say, oh, well, when's International Men's Day, and a lot of women go, well, it's every day, mate. But, but I thought he was an interesting fellow because he said we want men to think about nutrition and exercise, getting together, consider quitting smoking and reduce alcohol, and particularly to access some screening programs. And I thought it was so interesting compared to how women feel on International Women's Day. I can't speak for all women, but often women sort of, it's about empowering them. It's not so much about the sort of your health and the sort of the everyday things. It's more about believing in yourself, which made me then think, and I'm really curious for you to give me your point of view, and you did touch on it earlier. Famously, yesterday was the Academy Awards, and we had Chris Rock
And
make
Will
the
Smith.
joke about Will Smith's wife, Jada, and about her alopecia. And I found it really interesting that he got up and slapped him. What's your take on it?
There's parts of me that are concerned that that's acceptable on such a global stage, because it's not. End of story. I understand the need to defend people's families or their partners, but any sort of unprovoked, loosely termed, tongue-in-cheek reference to Jada inspire somebody to get up off their chair, walk up some stairs, and then publicly slap somebody.
Violence.
You know, yeah, it is. And that's it's something that I don't respect at all. I mean, I like both of those actors, and I think both of them happen to be men of colour. And you know, there's so much about Black Lives Matter in the US and equality for, you know, both men and women of colour in the US, and I just feel as though that's detracting from their causes as well. And you know, referring back to International Men's Day, that's not an international incident that I'd like to remember as far as, you know, being role models for our children. Not that I've got any children, but to be able to live harmoniously and to be able to be there for your friends and family, I think, is more important. And to defend them, yes, but you don't have to be physical about it. There are other channels to do that, and I just, you know, there's so many issues that men face as far as, you know, over the last decade, and rightfully so. Women's opinions matter, as do men's, as do children's, and if we can find that equilibrium for all of us to be able to have that voice respectfully, then that's a good thing, that's a healthy thing, and that provides healthy communities and respectful communities. And we can all have different opinions. People have a different opinion about this conversation today. But yeah, I respect the fact that he wants to defend his family, but I don't respect the physical aspect. And particularly when domestic violence in this country is at an alarming rate. As I said, I've had numerous friends and I've had numerous customers that have disclosed to me that they're in a domestic violence relationship. You know, I was in one myself. But yeah, it's not okay.
At this workshop the other day, the facilitator used the language, she didn't sort of say survivors or victims or perpetrators, or she said perpetrators, but she said it's people using violence or people experiencing violence. And my thought when I saw him get up and slap him, he could have grabbed the microphone and he could have made his point using words. And to me, it was just such a retrograde step for that idea that you can just fly off the handle like that because you're cranky, and what do? You use violence to make your point. And swearing.
You don't. You don't. You might on the football field, but you leave that on the footy field, and then you come back to, you know, normal, respectful conduct. And you're right, you know, words can be powerful, and I hope this message today, and the ultimate message is that of hope and encouragement, and, you know, both men and women need to be listened to equally, and that's one of the reasons why I went to work as a volunteer on the marriage equality campaign, is because even though I was the victim of gay men, I still knew that there's hundreds, if not thousands, of other gay men across Australia that deserve the human right to get married.
Yes, well, let's talk about the marriage equality, because that is where we started our friendship way back when. And thankfully, in 2017, it did become a reality, even though I think probably what LGBTIQ people had to go through was just not edifying.
Challenging.
Yeah, the campaign sort of comparing gay people to pedophiles and some of the just terrible, terrible things that were said. How did you find the campaign yourself?
I think in any campaign, if you treat people with the patience and the knowledge that they deserve their opinion as well, if they're willing to listen to your own opinion, then you need to respect them for their own opinion as well in return. and that's okay. I found it interesting at the public forum that we organised that there was a group of 4 people that spoke up and said that they're fully against it. We gave them the opportunity to speak as to why, and they weren't prepared to hear our side of the story. So that was a little bit grandstanding for myself, and everybody else might have a different take on that was there. But it's not a political issue, it's a human rights issue. And as I said to one of the political candidates at the time, if a heterosexual rapist can get married in jail, why can't a long-term loving couple that pay their taxes that identify as LGBTIQ can't? It just doesn't make sense. But anyway, times have moved on and here we are.
Yeah, and we've got...
And the world hasn't come to an end just yet. COVID might have had a different opinion on that. But yeah, no, I found it quite an interesting overview of, all different walks of life and all sorts of people. I remember my 89-year-old grandma said, "Oh, heck, in this day and age, who cares?"
Go grandma.
Yeah.
She knew what she was talking about. It was surprising. I think the unfortunate part was, and it's still going on with the religious discrimination bill. I can't really remember where that ended up before Parliament finished, but it was that sort of drawn into it, wasn't it? It was sort of conflating some of the issues, I guess, and it's a bit like mandates and COVID and vaccinations. People have their opinions, and do people ever come together? But I don't know. So your sexuality, that wasn't something that you found difficult coming out in Toowoomba as a young man?
I kind of didn't come out in Toowoomba. I threw myself into sport at high school, and that was a cover. But going to Sydney and being one person in a massive big fish pond, there was so many other challenges that I was facing at the time that it wasn't an issue. My mum was a hairdresser, so if anybody should have been fine with it, it would have been mum. But
and how was your mother and your stepfather?
My stepfather was great. Mum was the worry. But she obviously still grew to accept it. She said it was always different to have a child of your own that was identifying as gay.
Yeah,
but
I think
Mum
as
and
a
I
mother,
are
I
close.
can I don't know whether any of my kids are gay at this stage, but one of my nephews is gay and has just come back from the Mardi Gras. Loves the Mardi Gras, but he didn't want to make a big deal of it. He didn't want to be stereotyped into this type of person or that type of person. People don't introduce their son or don't talk about such and such being a heterosexual. So why should it be a topic of conversation?
Correct.
That's his sort of take on it. But yeah, I think
too.
for my sister, she worried about the discrimination and the sort of, sly jokes or whatever, so you don't want any of your kids to have to go through anything painful. And the idea that people might do it because it's fashionable, that's the thing that and because it's
something to do at the time.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because if you want a hard life or not a conventional life. But I do like the young kids these days. They're much more sexually fluid, and so they're all talking about being non-binary and whatever. Yep. So I often think, will we get to a point where then we're not talking about women's rights or men's rights, we're talking about people's rights?
Yeah,
human
rights.
Human rights, yeah exactly.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. That's a very good point. And I think that's growing up gay in Toowoomba back in the late 80s and early 90s is a lot different to what it is now. And I think hopefully you and I have both had a part to play in changing that dialogue for people, so I thank you for your contribution for that as well, because it was important. Even though I'd been victimised by my own people, in inverted commas, I knew that there was people out there that deserved the same equality of life and same quality of life as their heterosexual neighbours, and it doesn't matter whether they're gay, straight or indifferent, or gender fluid. If you find somebody that loves and respects you, that's all we can ask for.
And Justin, you have a partner at the moment,
yes,
long-term partner, and that's going really well for you.
It's been amazing. He's a little bit publicity shy, so I won't mention his name, but he's been very supportive of my own struggles with mental health, particularly over the past 4 months. And to be able to know that somebody's got your back is a beautiful thing. Sure. It's a beautiful thing, and to understand my history and being able to tolerate my over-analysis of my moods. It's important to have that somebody that ground you.
Someone on your side.
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
sort of things do you do to stabilise your mental health?
Oh. Megan, is it stable? I don't know.
Or
I try.
if you feel as though you're sort of going down the rabbit hole, or the black dog's got a hold of you.
Yeah, that's the thing. You've got to be able to... I know now that I can identify when that's happening. And, even last year, I was going through a stressful time in retail at Christmas, and I was having some difficulties with some ex-staff, and I went and saw my doctor and I said I'm really struggling, and put me on a mental health care plan for the first time in 10 years, and I was just like, oh, okay, I remember this. Right, here we go again. And so to be able to handle that quicker and handle that better, and having that own experience myself, you take yourself off to bed earlier, and you make sure that you minimise the treats and the chocolates and the sweets, and you take the dog for a walk once more often during the week, or go and do some exercise or a yoga class or whatever it is that exercise is to you. It's different for everybody. So yeah, it's about being able to identify when that's happening. And there was a moment for me during last Christmas where I couldn't physically go to work. I couldn't do it, and I had supportive staff at the time where I didn't want to get up out of bed. I didn't want to go and have a shower. I didn't want to eat anything. And I thought, this is the black dog at my bedroom door. And I still functioned. I still made the phone calls I needed to make. I still ordered stock. I still did all those sorts of things, but I just couldn't face the public. And so I gave myself that day and a half to reset and allow myself to acknowledge that negativity that was circling. And then on day 3 I went, right, mate, that's enough. Let's work on this. This has got to change. You've got to be there for your staff. And you just talk yourself up and you talk yourself back into it. And that's what works for me. It's not always going to be that easy for some people. For some people it might literally be getting out of bed, and you've got to applaud those people that are in that situation, that are still wanting to be here but don't know how to be a better version of themselves, for want of a cliche, that have experienced a traumatic event or are at a crisis event or are feeling overwhelmed, and that they can't put on their uniform or can't go and have a shower or can't go to work. To be able to reach out and pick up a phone and talk to somebody is just so courageous. Having been there and having the struggles that I've had, I understand it, and I had some amazing conversations with people where you look at my situation and they share theirs, and there's that commonality of understanding and knowingness about what it's like, and you do put yourself in their shoes at times. And thankfully I'm in a position now, after counselling again from last November through to January, where I put myself on a mental health care plan and went to the psychologist, and we workshopped what I needed to do to get myself back into work mode. And it was really beneficial. It was really beneficial.
So even though you'd kind of been down the path many times before, you're saying that each experience you might get a little bit better at it, but you're never cured. Yeah.
I'm optimistic and hopeful that you are, but once you've had a traumatic event like I did, for other people it might be, physical injury from falling off a horse or in a car accident, but for me to be able to identify those changes psychologically and to be able to put in practice, and to be able to tell people that you're struggling, to being able to have that confidence. And once you start those conversations, it is so much easier. It's Australian to help out a mate. So as soon as you tell somebody, you lighten the load. And you just make
women know it, mate. Yeah. We do. That's why we talk so much to each other.
Women are amazing. Women are amazing. No doubt. No arguments here at all.
I want to talk to you about what you do away from your work. So
work is my life, Megan.
I know you're Australia's greatest workmate, but are you...
Move on from that.
What is your involvement with racing buggies and cars and things?
Speedway. I love it. I know it's a contradiction in terms for a gay man to like his speedway, but I absolutely love it. The smell, the noise, the combative behaviour. It's like chess on adrenaline. It's just incredible to be able to see the different lines on the racetrack, to see the different angles, and it's physics, and it's that V8 grunt and the noise and the atmosphere. It's just it's really cool. It's really cool.
And the smell of the fuel and
and
the roar of the
burning
crowd
rubber
and
the hot dogs with tomato sauce, and chicken salt chips with too much salt on them, but it is what it is.
Have you ever driven a race car, or
Not in your life.
you just
Not
like
at
to
all.
be the observer?
Yep, I'm the world's greatest cheerleader.
Oh, fantastic. Have you been involved with anyone who's
Yeah,
driven cars?
yeah, definitely. I call them my adopted Speedway family, the Pollitz Racing Team, motorsport team. So there's Nathan and his mum Brenda and his father Cameron. And then there's the Parmenter crew and their nephew Bailey Payne, who's a junior race car driver at the age of 12. And good little driver, great little kid. And to be able to see what these kids do on a racetrack is, exciting.
That's all local here at
Yeah.
the Speedway here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And would you go out there once a
Monthly.
monthly?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And you
And I've driven to Kingaroy for Speedway. I've gone to Maryborough, Gympie, yet to get to Lismore. So a bit of a shout out to those guys that are doing it tough down there at the moment. So I wish them all well and wish them the best of luck in the future with their recoveries for the tragic events of the flooding season.
Yeah. It's not over yet by the sounds of it.
No, unfortunately.
Okay, so I've dragged the racing race
love
in
it.
the Speedway. What else have we got?
My animals. I did some wildlife rescue last year as well, which was very challenging and very stressful for a number of different reasons. You feel responsible as a parent would for these little lives that pretty much learning on the fly as you go, because we had dollar birds that are a migratory bird from China to Australia, and one of those guys ended up at Australia Zoo, and it's just incredibly rewarding and incredibly heart-wrenching at the same time. And we ended up with some ungodly amount of cages. We ended up with 6 cages on our dining table. We had 14 cages in our sunroom, and we had 12 cages on our back deck, all full of rescue birds. From everything from kookaburras to tawny frogmouths to rainbow lorikeets to dollar birds and magpies and currawongs, you name it, they came through, and we tried to look after them. So some of them aren't available for release because there's a syndrome called lorikeet paralysis syndrome, and once they get the syndrome, they've got it for life, and they literally fall out of the sky after eating a poison pollen. And to be able to live a regular life, they literally would look like they're deceased, and the only thing you can see is if they blink. So it's just incredibly confronting seeing this sort of stuff, and the treatment of that. The local vets have been fantastic, and they're also developing their programs to help re-release birds, and I think there's a great little community in Toowoomba for wildlife carers. Some might say that some of them are a little bit disjointed and need to work better together. But from my own experience, to be able to care for, again, creatures in our own backyard, it was just a beautiful thing. So we currently have 44 birds of our own, by choice. By choice. And they've all got their own personalities, and they're all sizes from little budgies all the way through to rainbow lorikeets and a galah.
Have you got any egg-producing birds?
We have 3.
I.e. chickens?
We've got 3 chickens. 3 chickens.
Are they off the lay like mine are at the moment?
No, they're very, very forthcoming with their eggs.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful.
All right. Well, look, I'll just remind the listeners that they're on 4DDB, and we're in our segment Big Little Small Talk, and we're talking to Justin Bygrave today about his incredible experiences and all the things that he's cared for over the years, including himself and a number of friends. Justin, before I let you go, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. So some of them are lighthearted, some of them not so much. But
Bring it on.
What scares you most about your future, would you say?
Not being able to provide for my loved ones.
Oh, there you are.
Yep.
Had to think about that. Didn't have to think about that.
No.
No.
Yeah.
In what sense? Is it that you won't be able to work, or that you won't...
Financially and emotionally. You know, we all, unfortunately, all get old. And recently, you know, my grandma passed away and my granddad's 98. So I'll be around for a while if the genetics work. So to be able to see their lives sort of unfold the way they have is very touching, and the love that they shared for each other was just beautiful. And if I can achieve half of what they've had, to be able to provide for the people that I care for, then that'd be amazing.
Well, I guess you've crossed over into my second question, which was going to be, who has been the most influential person in your life and why? Or perhaps I should ask people. Is that your grandparents, or have you got a different answer to that?
Probably in the last 10 years, I do have a different answer. It would be my partner.
Okay.
Yeah. Inspired me to do healthy things and challenge myself by doing political campaign or human rights campaign in the marriage equality field, to challenge myself to set up my own business, to encourage me to set up my own suicide prevention campaign, to listen to my repetitive conversations about my own headspace, to be that person that has literally kept me on the straight and narrow.
Well, I'm sure it's not all a one-way street. I'm sure
It's
there's
not.
lots of
Not at
things
all.
that
It's an absolute partnership.
Yeah, a partnership, exactly. All right, well, what's the weirdest food combination you've ever had?
I love my food, so I've tried a few different combos. But one thing that I was introduced to was snakes wrapped around twisties and a twisty sandwich. And that... Okay, I like my sweets. That was so good.
Is that in bread?
Yeah.
Snakes?
White bread.
But how would you
snake? Stretch the snake out. Wrap. It's got to be a good solid twisty, not like the thin, skinny ones. It's got to be a chunky twisty. And you wrap your snake around the chunky twisty, and then you put it into the sandwich.
You'd need a 2-litre bottle of water beside you. It'd be all so dried. How would you even masticate that? It's just diabolically unhealthy.
It is. But so is
Everything.
Speedway.
That's true. I love that. All right. What about, are you a dancing man or a singing man?
Oh, yeah. In the shower.
I'm asking a gay guy
every
whether he's a
day.
dancing man or a singing man.
I got moves, but I haven't used those for a while. Actually, that's one thing I haven't done since Sydney, is gone out.
I haven't been out dancing?
Nope.
There might not be enough of a club scene here in Toowoomba, I wouldn't imagine.
Oh, I've just had other things I needed to do.
Okay. So, what's a song that can't keep you off the dance floor then?
I was going to say Staying Alive, but that's a really big cliche, knowing the subject that we've been talking
Well, yes, a cliche, but a good song all the same.
It is.
A BG song.
Xanadu, good old Olivia, we love that one. And I must, one thing that I've been listening to a lot over the past 6 months, and yes, I was the executive producer of it, so is the song by the beautiful and talented Lucy McAleer. She wrote a song for our suicide prevention campaign, Don't Give Up on You, and that's available free on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. It's a beautiful piece that we put together within 6 weeks from start to finish.
Is she a local girl?
She's a local girl, yeah.
And
she actually worked for me.
Fantastic.
So it came about really flippantly. I'm like, oh, Luce, you can sing, can't you? Can you write a song for our campaign? I'm going to do a campaign for suicide prevention. Can you write a song for that? She goes, yeah, I can do that. I went, good. Can you? Really? When can you start? Right. She goes, tomorrow, if you like. And so that's, she rang me the following week and made a few chats about what I wanted for the execution of the track. I think you're going to have to play it.
Oh, I think I am. I think I'm going to have to find it straight away. Is there a film clip to it as well?
There is.
And did you film the film clip?
Not me, no. It's all about Lucy talking to us, talking to the person that might feel overwhelmed. And as my messages of hope and encouragement, it's okay to survive your trauma. And then if you choose to, it's okay to thrive following your trauma. You shouldn't feel guilty about any success that comes your way, even though people don't want you to be successful.
Mm-hmm. So what was the name of the song that Lucy wrote again? Don't Give Up on You. It sounds like the name of a great song.
Great little campaign.
Yeah, great little campaign. Well, with that, I feel almost too guilty being flippant and asking you my next question, but it's my favourite. Because I'm a closet royalist. I love serving on the royals.
Surprise me with a name like Megan O'Hara Sullivan, a closet royalist. Who would have thought?
Well, no, I'm the Irish. I wouldn't like the British at all. So who's your favourite royal?
Oh, gosh. Okay. Favourite royal.
Doesn't have to be living. Doesn't have to be English.
No, but Grace Kelly, Princess Grace of Monaco. Bit of a trailblazer in her time as well. Beautiful, gorgeous looking lady. I must admit I am a bit of a fan of Prince Harry because he's just a cheeky young royal who's also followed his own heart and followed his own beliefs and directions, which is great. And Kate Middleton.
Oh, we've got three. Three favourites.
I just think she's the epitome of the modern royals for them.
Style and grace.
Just grace and just, the Fab Four, if only. If only they'd sort of
harking back
together.
To the days. Oh, yes, Harry and Meghan and
and Will.
Well, maybe there is.
There's always hope for reconciliation and moving forward
and space for everyone.
Yeah,
and doing
absolutely.
it their own way and not being judged for it. I think
That's
you're right.
correct.
Yeah.
No judgments.
I'm yet to have someone to say that Camilla is their favourite, because my theory about the Camilla and Charles relationship, even though people are very much in love with Di and tragic circumstances of her death, I think those two are a true love story, really. It's survived generations, but I don't get anyone telling me that
longevity creates credibility, so be it.
Well, will he ever get to be? I think it's the 70th commemoration of the Queen's reigning right at the moment, which is amazing. I saw a picture of her since she's survived COVID as well.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
And losing her husband. It's been a big year.
It's been incredible. It's been an incredible year for a couple of years for Australia as well. We've had droughts, we've had bushfires, we've had floods and COVID. So one other message that I have for the listeners is to support your small business. They've all got families, they've all got, dreams, hopes, and if you can, just look after the locals. Yeah. Look after people in your own backyard.
That's a very good way to say goodbye, and thank you for being my guest. Oh, it's been lovely to talk to you, and I hope some listeners feel inspired by your story. It's been really heartfelt and really wonderful to hear it, Justin. Thank you.
Honest. You're welcome.
If anything in this program has raised concerns for you or someone you know, help and support is available 24/7. Please contact Lifeline on 13 11 14 or visit lifeline.org.au.
That's it for this week. Thanks for joining me on Big Little Small Talk. I hope you can make the time to join me next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favourite podcast app.